Well, good morning and welcome to today's daily devotions on Good Friday morning. And I hope you'll be back again on our YouTube channel at 10:30 this morning for our Good Friday service. But for now, we're going to turn and take a look at Psalm 10. We're going to read first of all verses 1 through to 11. So shall we turn there now? Why, Lord, do you stand far off? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? In his arrogance, the wicked man hunts down the weak, who are caught in the schemes he devises. He boasts about the cravings of his heart. He blesses the greedy and reviles the Lord. In his pride, the wicked man does not seek him. In all his thoughts, there is no room for God. His ways are always prosperous. Your laws are rejected by him. He sneers at all his enemies. He says to himself, "Nothing will ever shake me." He swears, "No one will ever do me harm." His mouth is full of lies and threats. Trouble and evil are under his tongue. He lies in wait near the villages. From ambush he murders the innocent. His eyes watch in secret for his victims. Like a lion in cover, he lies in wait. He lies in wait to catch the helpless. He catches the helpless and drags them off in his net. His victims are crushed, they collapse, they fall under his strength. He says to himself, "God will never notice." He covers his face and never sees. These are dark verses, aren't they? And perhaps the darkest part about them is that we recognize them. We see this kind of thing going on in the world around us. People who flout justice, people who are cruel and unkind, people who ignore God. And what this reminds us of is that the world that we live in is not the world that it should be. And that's true in so many ways, isn't it? Here in the example we find in Psalm 10, it's people who practice injustice, but we see it in so many other ways. The one that fills our TV screens at the moment is the terrible virus, COVID-19, that is impacting our world in such awful ways. And we're reminded, aren't we, that our world is not as it should be. And whether it's disease or whether it's injustice, it raises the question that we see in verse 1. Why, Lord, do you stand far off? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? The psalmist is asking that question, a very real question that maybe you feel this morning. Where is God in all this mess? Where is God in the midst of this broken world? But the psalm continues. Look at verse 12. Arise, Lord. Lift up your hand, O God. Do not forget the helpless. Why does the wicked man revile God? Why does he say to himself, "He won't call me to account"? But you, God, see the trouble of the afflicted. You consider their grief and take it in hand. The victims commit themselves to you. You are the helper of the fatherless. Break the arm of the wicked man. Call the evildoer to account for his wickedness that would not otherwise be found out. The Lord is king forever and ever. The nations will perish from his land. You, Lord, hear the desire of the afflicted. You encourage them. You listen to their cry, defending the fatherless and the oppressed, so that mere earthly mortals will never again strike terror. Such a contrast, isn't it? That second half of the psalm. As the psalmist continues to put his trust in God, like so many of the psalms, it begins with a question. It begins with a sense of doubt, but it ends with faith in God. The God who, in the middle of all the mess, in the middle of a world where things don't seem to be as they should be, he's still able to trust God. But how? Well, I think it's helpful actually that we're looking at a psalm like this on a morning like this. Good Friday is perhaps the greatest example of how God can take the brokenness, the mess, the pain, the evil, the wrongness of our world and turn it around for good. Just think of the cross of Jesus. When we get back together again at 10:30 this morning, that will be what we'll read about, what we'll sing about, what we'll pray about. As Jesus hung on the cross, there could be no more wrong act that humans had ever committed to kill the one who created them, to murder God's Son. No greater injustice was ever carried out. No more painful form of death has ever been invented. And yet there, even in the most evil, the most broken, the most unjust moment in human history, God was able to turn it around for good. And so because of that, it gives me hope. It should give us hope that God can turn all things around for good. That God can take the brokenness that we see around us in our world, the injustices, the pain, the deadly viruses. And we don't know how. That's God's domain, but we can trust him that he is able to take these wrong things, these messed up things, these broken things, these painful things, these things that make us scratch our head and say, why? That he can take them and turn them around for good. Shall we pray? Father, on this Good Friday morning, we thank you for the example of the cross, for the way that it demonstrates to us once and for all that you are a God who is able to take even the worst of this broken world and use it for good. That from injustice, you can show your justice. Out of great evil, you can show your greater love. That you will indeed stand by the innocent. And we see on Easter Sunday morning that Jesus himself, the truly innocent one, is vindicated. And this gives us a sense of what is coming down the tracks when one day you bring all things to completion, when one day you return this world to what it should be, and so much more. Lord, we long for that day. And in the moment that we're in now, where things can sometimes be hard, where we can experience pain, where we can witness injustice, we trust you, the God who works all things together for good. Amen.